this video, I will show you step by step how I made my latest threaded rod suspended garage shelves. Now this video is part of the Dream Garage playlist on Scott's Garage, where I have been finishing what had been an unfinished garage for 40 years. This is step 4A, the shelves. Let's face it, most garage shelves are terrible. When we moved into this house a year ago, here's what the garage shelves look like. Somebody had good intentions, but really they were terrible shelves. Now I can say that because for years I made terrible garage shelves. It'd be like I tell my wife, well, today my project is I'm going to make some garage shelves. I go to Home Depot, buy some 2x4s, slap them together, and call them good. But they weren't good. They were kind of embarrassing. But over the years, I have developed these hanging rod threaded garage shelves. I really love them. They're strong, they look neat and clean, and they've really met my needs over the years. Now let me show you the detail of these shelves. Okay, here are the basic materials and the basic tools that I'll be using for these threaded rod suspended shelves. First of all, I'll be building a frame for each shelf, and the frames are made out of 2x3 studs. These are 8-foot studs. So not 2x4, but 2x3. The actual dimensions are not 2x3, but just like 2x4s. This is like 1.5 inches by 2.5 inches. You can buy these at Home Depot. They're cheaper than 2x4s. Now, the reason I use the 2x3 studs is that it does reduce the weight a little bit. So if you have an 8-foot shelf that's 18 inches wide, and you have 2x4s, it's going to be somewhat heavy, and you want I want the shelves to be strong, but I don't want them, each to weigh 50 pounds. So it does reduce the weight a little bit. The strength, these are still very, very strong for shelves. And the other thing with these is that when I build the frame, I'm going to use the lower profile. So the side of the shelf will be here, and then the top part of the shelf, which is I'll be using OSB board for that. Now again, I've made dozens of these shelves. I've had zero problems over the years with the lower profile. Obviously, it'd be stronger if you built it this way, but also you have wasted space. So anyway, this is how I do it, and the threaded rod will be coming through here. I also paint these, and I prefer the Valspar cabinet and furniture paint. You can buy this at Lowe's, and I like the satin finish. The oil enriched means that as you brush it on or roll it on, that it smooths itself out. It's just a nicer finish, and I did color coordinate it. And for all the projects in this garage and the shelves, I'll be using this. Also for the workbench, which you see here, which is not finished, it's a separate project, but I'm using the same cabinet paint. Okay, moving on to the threaded rods. These threaded rods that I'll be using are 3/8 inch. In previous videos and previous shelves that I've made on Scott's Garage, I've used 1/2 inch. And I got feedback, comments, and a few comments said, hey, overkill, you don't need 1/2 inch threaded rod, 3/8 is sufficient. I did my own research. Here's a graph that I found online that talks about the strength of the threaded rod, the diameters in that. And according to this chart, these 3/8 inch threaded rods are very, very strong. Each shelf will have several of these. And so I'm going to use the 3/8 inch in this project. Now, these are obviously cut down. These are 48 inches and 24 inches, but I didn't buy them that way. I could have. If you go to a hardware store, there'll be a section where you can find threaded rods, and you can buy them in the shorter lengths, but they're quite pricey. A cheaper way to go is to go through the electrical section, and there you'll find 10-foot sections of threaded rods in various sizes, and the 10-foot lengths are quite a bit cheaper. You do have to cut them down, and so I use my compound miter saw, and I put a metal blade on it, and I cut them through. Now, after you cut them, it is a little bit problematic. You can see that it ends up looking like this. You have to be careful. You can easily get cut and stuff, but some jagged edges, and the problem is that the nuts will not fit on. Even though this is a straight cut, that is way too jagged for a nut to fit on. Now I have a solution for this, and I'll show you in detail here in a few minutes. But basically the solution that I found is getting an external camphor tool. So that's what this is. You can buy these on Amazon. You can see the link in the description below. Well worth, it's like a $20 bit, but well worth it. And likewise, if you have a bolt that you cut off and it's jagged, this is the solution. It camphors it, and basically then once you do this, nuts will easily go on. Again, I'll show you this here in a few minutes. Okay, the final thing I'll be using, the top of the shelf. This is 7/16 OSB board, oriented strand board. It's cheaper currently than plywood. I've used plywood, I've used MFD, and this time I'm using the strand board. But I've already ripped these down. These were 4x8 sheets, and for each set of shelves, there's different widths in this garage. I believe these are like 16 inches. And so I've already ripped it down to that size. Okay, before we move on, I want to explain the basic mechanics of how you suspend the threaded rods from your ceiling. Now, in your ceiling, you have roof rafters or trusses, and they run the same direction. And in this garage, they run this way along the full span of the ceiling. And basically, you want to create a cut a 2x4 or 2x6 and drill a hole through it. So in this case, this is 3/8. And then you want to put a nut on it, and you should use some thread lock. I don't have thread lock on this one, but you want to put thread lock so that the nut doesn't move. And basically, in your attic, you drop this through, and you have to, if you have drywall, you obviously have to cut a hole through the drywall. And anyway, you take this 2x4 or 2x6 and you put it on top of your rafters, just like that. So the weight of the shelf is now being placed on the rafters, and then your shelf will be attached here below. Now, I did it differently in this garage. As some of you know, this was a project. It's a 40-year-old unfinished garage, so I've had the privilege of finishing it. And so what I did ahead of time is I went up into the roof, and instead of using the final rods, because I didn't know how many shelves I would have, I simply used bolts, just like this. And so the same principle, so I put the bolt through and put a nut on the bottom. And then I just have this coupling here, and the coupling goes on. And then what I'm going to do now is use these rods. So these are coming through my ceiling, and I'll be attaching them here and building my shelf that way. So that way, I could easily disconnect these shelves if I ever wanted to. And this method worked a little bit better for my purposes. And if we just take the camera here and go up here, you can see those couplings and how they're sticking through. Okay, here's some more detail on this external camphor tool. Again, I have an affiliate Amazon link below for your convenience. And I've struggled with cutting off bolts and rods for years, and this really works well. So you can see it's a cone shape. There are 3 hardened steel blades on the inside. And I don't know exactly what angle that is, maybe like a 30-degree angle or so. And I'm using my Harbor Freight Tools vise. This is, I think their newest vise. It's a small one. It's only $24. It clamps on the side of the workbench. Simply put the rod in there just to make sure it's nice and straight. And again, with the jagged edge of cutting it off, the nut will not go on there. But you just use the camphor tool. You just put your drill on a slow setting. And just slowly camphor it out. I can see some shavings dropping, and I can see it right now. It's nice and camphored. Let me give you a close-up of that. All right, there we go. You can see it now. It's nice and comfortable. The nut should go right on. Famous last words, but it does. And in the past, I put nuts on ahead of time, cut it, and then you have to, like force the nut. But you don't have to do that. You can just cut it with your saw, and then use this, and that's the way to go. So I'll do all the rest of the rods. Okay, it's time now to drill the holes through the 2x3 studs that the threaded rods are going to be going through. In the past, I've used my cordless drill and just did it by hand. However, if you're just slightly off, when the rod goes through it, all of a sudden it's going at an angle, and I've had to ream them out and stuff. And so I've upgraded. I now have a Bauer drill press. I bought this at Harbor Freight. I'll do a separate video on this eventually. But as plumb, as whole as possible on these shelves, the better. So I have a 3/8 inch bit, and I've already pre-marked these. You have to measure correctly, so I know this lines up with the bolts that are sticking through, and we will drill them all. Okay, it's time to screw together the frame. I'll be using these 4-inch wood screws. They are T25 head, and I'm going to pre-drill these. I've had a problem with flat passes that sometimes they split apart, and so I just have a really long bit that's quite a bit smaller than the screw, but there'll be two here, and I'll screw them in, and we'll go from there. Okay, it's time to attach the top of the shelf to the frame of the shelf. I'll be using 1-inch wood screws, the T25. There's going to be a slight lip on the front part of the shelf. Okay, the next thing is that the top of the shelf is upside down right now, but that has to be drilled. And I'm not too much concerned about the angle because these are already pre-drilled here. And so I'm simply going to use my cordless and go through and make sure that I don't drill through my workbench. Okay, I'm adding something new to this build for these shelves that I've not done before. It's just to dress it up a little bit. This is 1/2 inch PVC. It's not the Schedule 40, it's not the heavy stuff. It's the lighter stuff. I think it's called Charlotte. And I painted it the cabinet paint. And I'm going to be using this to cover the rods, just to, again, dress them up a little bit. And just to hold them in place, I'm just going to tape them temporarily. The gravity will hold them in the end. At this point, it'd help to have another person, but do it yourself, right? Okay, that worked fairly well. I'm going to use my step finder now, mark a couple of the studs, and put some of these longer wood screws in. Okay, now we build 3 shelves above the workbench and 1 shelf over here the exact same way. Here we are, the shelves are done. Now this final shelf that I put in place is meant for larger but lighter items. I'm thinking like coolers and things like that, that a little bit higher profile, things you don't use all the time. And it's not a super meant for a lot of weight, but it'll be sufficient for lighter weight, larger items. These set of shelves here above the workbench, this will be the main backdrop for Scott's garage. I'll be adding some LED lights on these shelves, similar to my previous garage. Really looking forward to that. And this set of shelves here is super heavy duty. I'll be storing tires up there. This is Montana, so the snow has not flown yet, but when it does, we'll be putting snow tires on, and the regular tires will be stored up here. Now, I'll be still creating a new set of smart shelves. Those are not done. There'll be an upcoming video. And the next video, though, will be finishing this workbench and also storage bin cabinet. It's not quite finished, but it will be. And it'll be the next video on the Dream Garage playlist. Hey, if you got any value at all from this video on how to build these shelves, how to make your neighbors jealous because you have good garage shelves now, please give me a like. It costs you nothing, but it's a great value to me. And as usual, have a great day.